Peace. What's good? What's good? What's good? I saw another author talking today. He made like an Instagram reel as a joke, talking about how hard it is to self-publish. Basically, how hard it is to edit as a self-published author when you're showing versus telling. I gave him some advice. The advice I gave him was essentially, if you have to tell something, use a character, use dialogue, and use character specific verbiage. Something that only have that character tell it in a way that only that character can tell it, and it will equal an equivalent amount, lesser value of you having shown it, but it was going to help. But I think what you're ultimately misunderstanding the challenge here. You're gonna have to tell eventually. You're gonna have boring moments in monologue. It's a book. It's not a movie. And I think a lot of authors feel as if we're competing with other authors for readers' attention. And that's not true. Because then you're only dealing with a very small percentage of people. And out of that small percentage of people, a lot of those people may not be interested in your content. They may not really care about reading whatsoever. Not just reading your work, but reading all, you know? And I think that's very important to like process. You're not competing with other authors for readers. You're competing with entire multi conglomerate corporations for attention. So when it comes to the idea of editing your book, which I didn't really believe in when I first got started, I have other videos that could probably tell you the exact same thing. But I see it very differently now, specifically on today, as I do feel hyper emotional, as I do feel hypersensitive, as I am like really going through a lot in my personal life right now. I can tell you from a very raw, unique perspective that the difficulty that you're having is not showing versus telling. The difficulty that you're having is delivering an equal or superior experience than watching a TV show, watching a movie, watching a YouTube video, scrolling through Instagram, scrolling through social media. What you're competing with is for people's attention. People wanting to sit down with your work for 5 to 15 hours of their day to pick up the book when they're on the toilet, to pick up the book while they're at work, to pick up the book if they commute by train or by bus while they're making their morning commute. And if someone enjoys reading, it's going to be a lot easier to do that with a Penguin published book that they know that has been rigorously edited, rigorously revised. It's had a team of people looking at it to be okayed and pre-approved by thing one, thing two, and thing three, you know? But what you're doing is you're taking something purely from your mind and from your perspective, and you're giving it directly to the masses. Whoever your masses are, whoever your audience is, whoever the people that see your name and they're like, I'll support this guy. I've been doing a lot more studying and a lot more reading, a lot more understanding. And even, today specifically, because I'm reading a book by Rob Eager, who I didn't realize how big Rob Eager was until I was reading his book. And it was kind of the whole point he was making was like, you have to put endorsements inside of your book for other people to recognize it and buy it and see it. I've had this man's work. I've been learning from one of his students apparently for quite some time, but now I'm learning from the source. And it's a lot different when you're learning directly from source because when they are the source, they're the source for all people. They're not just the source for you. They're the source for people far more famous than you are. And it makes these people that are far more famous look a lot more human because you guys are all reaching out to the same person for help and for assistance. And you know for a fact that they can give you the help and the assistance that you need. I didn't view publishing companies that way when I first got started. I viewed the book industry a lot more like the music industry, and I probably shouldn't have, because I've heard a lot of crazy, negative, scary things about the music industry. But your issue is simply that you're not competing with the books that you like or that you've personally read because you can't sell books to yourself. You're competing with people's attention on a multimedia level, and you have to meet what you're facing with the same strategy that a giant corporation would use, but you need to scale it down to what you can use personally. If you're not using Grammarly or outsourcing editing in some source, use Microsoft Editor, like use something. But the issue with that is that you're trying to take an idea that you uniquely understand in an entirely different perspective to people that don't read above a sixth grade level. So the difficulty that you would have in trying to explain that by word would increase in difficulty on paper. If you have my issue, I write how I speak. I write as if I'm talking to you. I write as if you're watching a movie, essentially. You know, so it just kind of free form and comes and goes. For other works that I have, someone just left a review on the first book I ever wrote, Best Friends. Even if I was to edit the book and revise the book, it would not take away the fact that I wrote the book when I was 20. It's not taking anything away from the fact that like I wrote this book so long ago. My style has developed so much from then. My perspective of the world has developed so much from then that I wouldn't write the same book again. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't have wrote that book the way I wrote it. I wouldn't have written it. I would have written more about the relationship of Margot and Chris and then made a sequel discussing, you know, Maya and Chris's relationship. From the perspective I was at that point, I didn't really want to talk about my relationship. I didn't really want to speak about anything I was going anyway. But like, I had to talk about what I was going through, but I didn't want to talk about my relationship. And that leaves out a lot of the book. It leaves out a lot of the perspective of what both people are going through because the book is more so for catharsis. It's more so for therapy. It was more so for me to like recover from what I was going through at that time. It wasn't really made for mass production. It wasn't really made for the type of fame and the type of attention that it got. It was with that in mind, like absolutely, of course. But the way that the book was written, it was not. And as it became a bestseller, you know, it came rather quickly. It came rather just kind of like unexpectedly, and then it was a number one bestseller. So it wasn't like two or three, it was number one. So it was so popular because it was something that, one, men could very easily relate to the experience that I'm discussing with Chris, but women who are actually going to get married, women who are actually going to have long term relationships with men, it gives them a perspective of what men have gone through, what men are going through, what she puts you through. And two, because some of you are still dating your Margot and you haven't found your Maya yet. Some of you are still with Lilith, you haven't found Eve. But you need to compete where they cannot. A giant corporation has no soul. They can revise a book, they can take a very shitty book and they can make it a lot of money. They can make it very presentable to people. So it's easier to read for people, but it doesn't make it a better book. You might be able to deliver something that's absolutely amazing and spectacular, but if only you can understand it, it's not going to serve an audience, it's not going to serve a niche, it's not going to serve a genre, and then it's not going to serve the world. Ultimately, you want a book kind of like Best Friends that it's a bestseller. It's not the best written book, by any means, because I wasn't a great writer at that time. Before I wrote Best Friends, someone told me that I wrote like a sixth grader. So like take that for what it is, for the reality that we're at, you know. But it was a bestseller regardless of how well it was written, how poorly it was written. It was still a best-selling book. So if you write something that's going to serve the masses, if you write something that's going to serve a larger audience, that's going to solve a problem that people are facing, that's going to elucidate different perspectives of a situation everyone's going through, then you're going to have a lot of fun and have a lot of success. If you only write for yourself in only a way that you can understand, and you have people telling you that you have bad grammar, that they can't understand what you're writing, that you have bad characters, that you're a misogynist, you know, and you're just like, no, you don't understand me. They're gonna be like, no, I don't. No, I don't. I don't understand you. So bye, you know, and that's how that's gonna go. Find your audience, man, and they're gonna help you with a lot of that stuff. Don't view anything as criticism. View everything as feedback. And sometimes you get negative feedback. Sometimes you get positive feedback. You know, not everyone has something nice to say to you. That's fine. Maybe you're not likable all the time. Maybe sometimes people can't fucking stand you. You know, maybe you suck at writing. All those things you can fix. All those things you can get better at. But if you're going to get offended by it, if you're going to view it as a difficulty, if you're going to view it as a stressor, it's not that you can't solve it. It's that you make the process of solving it far more arduous than it needs to be, and then it makes the results that you deliver terrible because they're not made from a place of thriving. They're not made from a place of personal growth. They're made from a place of like complete and total abandonment of joy and happiness solely to make money. So if you do that, just like the corporations, you probably make a few hundred bucks. You might make like a smooth $1,000 and then never make another dollar again because everyone that's gonna buy your book has bought it. They didn't like it, and then they're never gonna buy another book from you again. You know, if you constantly keep delivering on quality and you constantly keep improving quality, and not just quality in production, but quality within your work ethic, quality within your writing, quality within your editing, quality within your ability to kind of like never stop being a reader and understand like what things have to look like and how things need to be delivered for a reader to best understand what's going on. You know, if you're not reading within your genre, you're probably gonna have hard time like functioning within that genre. So maybe that could help you if you just kind of niched back a bit and focused on what your purpose is. You probably get a lot further. If not, then no one can help you, and you're probably going to fail and go through informed cynicism and begrudgingly quit and then cause other people to quit by proxy. Instead of doing that, you could probably just have a little humility, you know, admit that this competition is a lot bigger than you think it is, and you're probably not going to be as important, as famous as you would like to be. You're not. Probably not. You know. Do you know the person that wrote fucking Hunger Games? No, I don't. You know, I'm not talking about the book. I mean the fucking movie script. No, you probably fucking don't. Do you know the person that wrote the fucking script for Harry Potter? No, you probably fucking don't. You just know J.K. Rowling. You know. So even once it becomes a movie, there are more people that know Daniel Radcliffe than they even know J.K. Rowling. Even if you did get the success that you wanted, even if you did like eventually live your fucking fantasies and shit like that, you would still be J.K. Rowling, and people would only know the Harry Potter movies. Is it beloved? Yes. Do people watch it every single Christmas as if it's like some kind of Antichrist ritual? Yeah, they do. You know, because the first Harry Potter movie has Christmas in it. You know? So I guess that first Harry Potter movie actually low key is like kind of a Christmas movie because they do have Christmas in the first Harry Potter movie. But you know, I'm just saying, even if you did, so just kind of like don't feel like you're doing something differently than what the greatest of the greatest of the greatest of the greatest of the greatest have done, because you're not. You know, all you need to do is figure out what we have done, figure out what they have done specifically, and then scale back to where you're at. And then be very honest about where you're at. Because if you're not honest about where you're at, you can't fix it. So you You can't fix a fucking delusion.